Drawing is a very basic art form. It's appealing because it can be used to make a very quick record of the ideas that an artist may be envisioning. envisioning. So a drawing can serve as a visual aid for the artist to remember a certain moment of inspiration and maybe use it for a more detailed work later on. Okay, remember, okay. Usually, such sketches allow the artist to visualize the proportions and the shapes without much attention to detail. So these images can be used by painters, art, architect, architects, sculptors, any artist really, and large rendering sketches of parts of the whole. This can be helpful in the creative process when a huge image might be more difficult to conceive in its entirety. Or a sketch of just one place in a crowd can allow the artist to focus on creating just that part of the image. So in many artist studios, countless drawings are strewn about as the final painting or sculpture takes form. I don't know about the final painting or sculpture takes form, and this gives us insight into the creative process as well as the opportunity to see changes from the image at the beginning in the image of the finished work. It's rare, in fact, for an artist to use permanent materials to begin a piece of images of finished work, yeah? A piece of work, art. And some painters, for example, even sketch onto the surface on the canvas before applying the pigments. Now, architects are especially prone to sketch because, of course, their buildings are so large that an image in smaller scale is necessary to the imagination and implementation of such projects. So these studies become the basis for future works. And again, this is very interesting as a record of the creative process. Okay, so for okay. Uh, Drawing has several other functions besides as a temporary reference. For centuries, artists have used drawing as a traditional method of education. By copying the great works, especially of the old masters, aspiring artists could learn a lot about proportion, how to capture light and shadow, and so forth. In fact, some artists who later achieve recognition still continue to use this practice to hone their practice. Or simply to pay homage to other artists, as is often the case when a work of art originally created in another medium like a sculpture when it's recreated in the form of a drawing. Many examples of drawings of Michelangelo's sculpture were recreated by well-known artists. One that comes to mind is the study of Michelangelo's Bound Swim by Edward Degas. The original by Michelangelo was a marble sculpture that was about 7 feet in height, but the small drawing was made in a sketchpad. In any case, the study is also considered a masterpiece. On a small scale, of course. So, what additional purpose might be served by the medium of drawing? Well, let's remember that photography is a relatively new art form, so prior to the use of photograph to record historical events, a quick drawing by an artist was about the only way to preserve the real-time visual account of an important moment, although a more permanent visual impression might be rendered later. It will be based on memory and not on the artist's actual observation. Probably the most often cited example of a sketch that preserved an historical record would be the small drawing of Marie Antoinette as she was taken to the guillotine in a cart through the streets of Paris. Jacques Louis David sketched this famous drawing on a piece of paper about the size of the palm of his hand, and the artist reporter is still important even in modern times, when photography isn't possible. For example, when judges won't permit cameras in the courtroom. Okay, to review, we've talked about three functions for drawing as your visual aid for the artist to complete future work, a method of education for aspiring artists or even practice artists, and as a way to report an event. But the sketchbook has other possibilities. Sometimes a drawing is a final execution of the art. Picasso produced hundreds of drawings in, well, every conceivable medium, but especially in pencil and crayon. I find it very interesting that Picasso did so much of this kind of work, drawing, I mean, in his last years. Some critics have argued that he was just laughing at the art world, which was willing to pay outrageous sums for anything with his name on it. And clearly, a drawing can be executed in a short period of time. But others, other critics, they feel as I do that Picasso was drawing because it was so basic and because it was so spontaneous and so much fun. And also think about how difficult it really is to produce a quick drawing with a few lines and no opportunity to recreate the original, either by painting it out or remodeling the clay or changing the building materials or any other method for revision of a finished artistic work that artists have at their disposal. So what I'm saying is that the drawing, when it's elevated to a finished piece, it must be done with confidence and it must show a high degree of creativity and mastery of the art form. In a way, it harkens back to the beginners of art itself, when some unknown artist must have stuck a finger in the earth to draw an image, or maybe he picked up a stone and made a drawing on the wall of a cave. Okay, so as a first assignment, I want you to make a couple of sketches yourself. I'm not going to grade them. This isn't a stage outburst. I just want you to use a few basic strokes to capture an image. You can do the first one in pencil, crayon, ink, chalk, or even charcoal, whatever you like. Then I want you to sketch the same image in a different medium. So if you do a face in pencil, I want you to do the same face but in chalk or crayon. Bring them to class next week and we'll continue our discussion of drawing. But we'll talk more about the materials artists use to produce drawing and we'll refer to your sketches as examples.